Hi, officer. Yeah, well, you see, Pluto went retrograde today, and I was dancing around the maypole, and it also being Mercury retrograde, and I was left unsupervised. May astrology. It's episode 249 of Star Sound Speaks, and this is your host, Irliana Samsara of Star Sound Astrology. Interesting month we have here. So for those of you who don't know me, or new to the channel, hello, my name is Irliana. I practice Hellenistic astrology blended with modern using whole sign houses. So we've got this interesting month here. May 1st, Pluto went retrograde. May 2nd, if you're in the Eastern Hemisphere. So Pluto went retrograde at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So this is giving us time to pause and reflect about the progress of, for example, our ideas, our technological advancement. And there was an article that was published about Hinton, he's called the godfather of AI, and his name is Geoffrey Hinton. He was in this big New York Times story, how he was worried about how fast this AI technology is going, and he was very concerned about it. Pause and reflect. This is what retrograde does. It takes almost half the year that Pluto's retrograde. 0 degrees is certainly a critical degree, so it's that preview about what's to come over the next 20 years that Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius. Pluto's going to be at the 0 degree till June 11th, so there's this next month or 6 weeks is going to be very much about pause and reflect. May 4th, Venus is going to come into a square with Neptune. Could be with our socializing, we might find ourselves confronted by maybe some deception or fantasy thinking or something that's not quite clear with boundaries. On a creative level, that can be really interesting. Gemini, the sign ruled by Mercury, so maybe our love and connection, our talents with writing and things, we could be infused with a lot of creativity and creative inspiration. One of the two big things this month is, of course, the lunar eclipse and Jupiter's movement into Taurus. Friday, May 5th is the lunar eclipse. This is the final eclipse in Scorpio for the next 9 years, and for South Node Scorpio for the next 18.6 years. So if you look back in your life and into the previous 18 years ago, and then 18 or so years ago before, you can see some definite themes that come up around these eclipses. Of course, these are the money signs, Taurus and Scorpio, our worth, the worth of others, the worth of ourselves, what's important to us, our values. The moon in Scorpio. Ruler of this eclipse is in its fall, Mars, and so is the moon. They're both water signs when you think about it. And it's a full moon, which is emotion. So this is going to be a very cathartic, intense, emotional, more so than others, because it's a lunar eclipse, because it's in Scorpio. This speaks to catharsis, healing, maybe some very volcanic purging of like deep, dark secrets or things that we have long held on to that are stagnating, that need to be released. South Node is always about the releasing and the letting go. So there's a death, either there's a physical death or there's a metaphorical death. There's this passing of how things were that have been holding us back, and it is time for renewal and regeneration and change. It could speak to family karma too. There's a very deep, fertile ground here, emotions being purged, a cathartic release of, like, say, long, maybe pressure cooker things that have been held under for a very long time, but making that cut and letting that go. So of course that provides this incredible opportunity for renewal, for the next thing to come into our life. So if something is falling away or dying or leaving your life right now, it's because its time had come. It could be something that we've held on to for a long time, but just know that it's perfect, it's divine. There's always movement forward, just like the renewal after a volcano scorches the earth. Out of that scorched earth becomes incredibly rich minerals, and it seeds and feeds the next level of life. It's a huge breakthrough. It really speaks to breakthroughs that can the potential for the really powerful movement and an unhinging and a breaking free, something that must be emptied. I would say too, with the presence of Uranus there within 4 degrees, there's definitely, it could speak to some sudden shocks or maybe a revolutionary idea or energy. It can also be about releasing trauma, certainly with Mercury near there, releasing maybe a traumatized mind or some past childhood experiences that have been traumatic. We can definitely use this as an opportunity to unseat everything that has been holding us back. May 7th, we have the Venus ingress into Cancer, and Venus will be in Cancer until June 5th. Venus will be joining Mars. It won't be conjunct, but it'll be joining Mars in Cancer. So that can definitely put some grace and ease around maybe some difficult realities we've had around material comforts or security or feeling safe. So the Venus is like that goddess of grace that can just soften and sweeten things. May 9th, Uranus is going to move into a cazimi. So Uranus gets its moment with the sun, and that can speak to a real breakthrough moment or some maybe outrageous, ingenious problem solving, certainly around our monetary system, our values, the earth, the environment, the things that we hold dear, our dear Mother Earth. We could come away in that time period where we're enlightened and we understand things, and maybe we see things from a future, like coming from the future into the now, like a future life progression, moving in from what is it that we truly cherish and how do we serve our future selves, and how can we connect and make practical solutions coming from source, coming from our future selves. Uranus conjunct the sun only happens once a year, and so great potential breakthroughs. May 13th, Venus is going to trine Saturn, both in water signs. So that could bring some kind of limitation or restriction, or some, I would say, wisdom and caution around security. It could also be around, Saturn being the wise elder, the ability to soften some maybe difficult realities around maybe some melancholy or some difficulties and challenges around boundaries. So getting some help there with Venus there and in that trine, it's this kind of grace and an ease in helping with these matters. Mercury will finally go direct. May 14th, it stations direct. It becomes the morning star. So the morning star has more of a yang energy of like announcing. I think of like the page, the medieval page with the long trumpet, and he's announcing some new beginning or new thing. So that happens on May 14th. We wouldn't really see and feel that effects of those things until Mercury emerges from behind the beams of the sun. So that'll take a couple of 3 weeks before we actually see the results of that. But it's when it starts. May 14th starts its journey direct again. Jupiter is going to cross the solar eclipse point that just happened on April 20th. We had a solar eclipse, 29 Aries. Jupiter will be crossing that point May 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. This is going to be a really interesting part of the month, this middle to the end of May. First of all, Jupiter brings grace and blessings and an increase, right? It always brings increase. And so the ideas and the themes that came up for us around that solar eclipse, Jupiter is going to bring a measure, maybe a higher wisdom or a higher perspective of knowledge around the themes that came up. So very much a blessing. It'll bring hope, optimism, grace, divine grace. Certainly, I would think in the area of like the judicial system or individual rights, there could be some grace and benefit to that. May 15th, Mars is going to come into a trine with Neptune around the middle of the month. This could be a little problematic when you think about both water signs, Neptune in the sign of Pisces, which rules oceans, Mars in Cancer. Cancer is more about rivers and things. So we could see, as we know, there was a reprieve in California with the weather. We had all that, the harsh weather and the drought and all, and then snow melt happening and kind of refilling some of Lake Mead and some of these dams and rivers. However, this could be a little problematic because with that trine, trines can bring increase. It's of the nature of Jupiter. So we might see a little too much of that. I know in Florida, there's big problems with the seaweed. There's some weird name to the seaweed. And all these globs of seaweed that are making their way more and more onto Florida's coastline. And so, Florida's a Pisces state. So Saturn's transiting its sun for the next 2.5, 3 years. So definitely an issue with coastlines and ocean coastlines. Florida's a big old peninsula, got a lot of coastline. So yes, these things are front and center, but it will definitely be pretty loud around the middle of the month. May 16th, Jupiter finally enters into Taurus. Last year, it entered and went up to about 8 degrees before it retrograded back into Aries. So we had a taste of it last May, June. Now it is coming back again to revisit those themes that we experienced then. It will stay in Taurus for about a year. I was interviewed by Stormy Grace about this several months ago. So if you want to listen to her and I chat it up, we had a fun time doing it. Jupiter in Taurus, I think what we'll feel is certainly a softening. Jupiter's leaving the sign of Aries, where it's hot, dry Mars, Mars's temple, and now it's going into Venus's temple in Taurus. And it's an earthy, sensual kind of expansion of consciousness in the earth realms of earthiness. I was feeling inspired to put together a playlist, a Jupiter and Taurus playlist of like all these like songs and instruments and artists and vocals and things that really personify Venus and Taurus. So look for that. That's coming soon. As soon as it goes into zero Taurus, what's it going to do? Square Pluto. So that big 20-year long saga of evolution through, the intellectual realms and the scientific and future oriented realms, the humanitarian focused realms of Aquarius, Pluto there, bringing up the shadow of that, as well as the potential for profound transformation. Well, Jupiter's going to come into that square, so they're going to meet, and they're going to, there's this conflict that it's bringing up about how to manage that effectively, and where does that benefit humanity? All of these things coming up. So there's this intellectual aspect of Pluto, and combined with earthy Taurus, those days in the middle to the end of the month, certainly very strong. May 16th to 20th, Jupiter is at that 0 degrees. So those 4 days, very, very testy. But it'll be in a square. The new moon comes in on the 19th, 28 degrees Taurus. And as it does, the next day, there's a fixed square. And this is what I was saying, I saw this several months ago, and I think it's a major, major transit. It's going to be for a couple of days. We'll feel it. But Mars will be entering 0 Leo, opposing Pluto, 0 Aquarius, Jupiter at squaring both of those at 0 degrees Taurus. So that's really, these are all, of course, critical degrees, fixed signs at critical degrees. How are we stabilizing, and what are we stabilizing? Themes of power, and maybe power trips and strength. And that we think about Leo with the creativity and the individual creativity coming into working it out, dynamically making things happen, building and creating and building to stabilize and set down some new avenues of expression, new avenues of confidence. What are we going to develop with transformation meeting into our own personal drive, meeting luck and opportunity and abundance all together, and how this is a very exciting few days, certainly I would think in the financial markets, if nothing else. Okay, May 21st, the sun comes into the sign of Gemini, enters Gemini season. So the sun will be in Mercury's temple. So it's moves out of earthy Taurus into more air, chatty, intellectual Gemini, fact-finding, merchants, selling, buying, all those cool, travel, short distance travel, vacation travel. Here it is, nice weather. And comes into, again, here's Pluto, but this time it's a trine. So sun trining Pluto, bringing up these themes again, very powerful time. I would think too, with a very much an interesting moment for, again, AI and computers, selling, buying, online, internet, maybe in community, building and enjoying, and the light shining on community and neighborhoods and neighbors and our siblings and people who are that we want to meet and network with. So powerful moment, May 21st. And then the last sun in Gemini is going to come into a square with Saturn. And so the sun squaring Saturn in Pisces, again, Saturn overcoming. So wise old Saturn that wants the very best for us, but it's also saying, hey, let's put the brakes on. So putting the brakes on, maybe giving a more serious, wise, mature tone to like the ADD energy of Gemini. But again, it can serve very well too. It's not just like Saturn's like the bad guy, like Billie Eilish said, I'm a bad guy. No, he's not a bad guy. He's there for our help. He's there to make us wise and mature. So we'll be feeling that energy for a few days at the end of the month. That's all I have for you today. Just to also say that we're so excited because Erin Reese is going to come back, and we are going to be launching into some cool bhakti yoga discussions to add to the astrology content. So looking forward to that and others. So yay. And I hope you have enjoyed this little overview about what's coming, and we can have some fun with it, and enjoying the beauty of Taurus season, which is always about fertility and strength and building and richness and sensuality. So with the sun being in Taurus and then going to Gemini. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please do like, share, subscribe. Just take it easy too with eclipses and let these energies settle. This is going to be a really intense, cathartic, transformational, final Scorpio eclipse. This will be it. So, I know for me, it was really hard. I mean, losing my cats and all. It was really not an easy eclipse cycle, the Taurus Scorpio. My cats passed on, and I got 2 new cats. A few months later, these new ones just came into my life. So again, that theme of renewal and resurrection, we always want to remember that to not dwell on what's leaving, but knowing and being in faith that things happen for a reason, and it's part of this bigger cycle of life. I hope you've enjoyed this. Have a great one, and I will see you soon. Mwah! Love you all. Yay. This is Heyo StarSounders, Star Sound Speaks, Star Sound Astrology. Namaste.